This is a real Shelby Cobra, and there's only about 100 of these left in the whole world. And if you wanted one, you better be ready to spend up to $13 million, which is stupid. And then there's this.
The Factory 5 Mark IV Roadster. This thing rips!
It looks like a Cobra, it goes like a Cobra, but it has a dirty little secret. It's fake! And today we're gonna figure out whether or not it's just as good as the original. We're going bumper to bumper on the legendary Shelby Cobra. Thousands of these Factory 5 Mark IV Roadsters have been built since the company launched in Massachusetts back in 1995.
And if there was a piece of coal between my butt cheeks right now, it would be a diamond.
That's because they shoved the largest engine they could into the lightest car possible. Now let's check out this one. It's called the Mark IV because it's Factory 5's fourth iteration of their Shelby Cobra kit.
Now I know what you're thinking. Whenever you hear the term kit car, you're thinking about some clapped out Fiero or VW Bug, but I promise you, this is not the case. When you order one of these kits from Factory 5, an 18-wheeler shows up at your door with everything you need, minus the drivetrain, like a damn Lego set.
It is a fully bespoke, modern take on the legendary Shelby Cobra. And for those of you guys that don't know what a Cobra is, where have you been, dude?
My name's Carroll Shelby, and performance is my business.
In the 1960s, the legendary Carroll Shelby took a tiny British AC chassis and shoved a monstrous American V8 in it, and thus, a legend was born.
About all I had was an idea. You might even call it a dream. It was to build a sport car that, first of all, more people could own and enjoy driving, and second, that could race under American colors and maybe pride the old established names a little bit.
Thus cementing the Cobra as one of the most influential cars of all time. Let me tell you about how this thing came to be. Factory 5 kicked off things in 1995 when brothers Mark and Dave Smith took the spirit of the British-inspired Roadster and dropped a modern Mustang V8 in it. Instead of relying and sourcing temperamental 60-year-old parts, the Factory 5 uses contemporary engineering. I know this thing is a kit car, but it still drives like a Cobra ready to snap your face off.
Oh, it's on rails, baby! It's on rails!
Even though the Factory 5 is modernized, there is still zero driving aid.
From a driver's perspective, this car deserves just as much respect as the original. Holy shit.
So let's go ahead and talk about the differences between this bad boy and the real one.
Back in the 1960s, the original Cobra came with 271 horsepower, and the most powerful Mark III closer to 450. Both of these engines stuffed into a car that weighed close to nothing, making for a terrifyingly good power-to-weight ratio. But all of this raw performance came with compromises, like manual steering, a super heavy clutch, and no brake assist. I'm telling you, these cars were made for people with the fattest forearms and calves, and you probably know about forearms, don't you? Why are your forearms so big, boss? What have you been up to in your spare time? This modern one updates that formula with a 370 horsepower 302 crate motor from Ford Racing. That means fuel injection instead of an old carburetor. You know what they say about carburetors? They are stinky and heavy. The original Cobra frame was a relatively simple ladder chassis, which was relatively stiff and light for the time, but by today's standards, it's basically a truck frame. But frame scientists have been hard at work since then creating new shapes, like triangles. The Factory 5 uses a custom tubular steel chassis that's been fully triangulated and is far stiffer than the original design. It is built for modern horsepower levels. All of this leads to a car that has better handling, sharper steering, and allows you to really lean on the car when you're going into those corners. And speaking of cornering hard, you need some bustling suspension to go crazy. The earlier Cobras featured a transverse leaf spring design, which wasn't the best, but appropriate for the time, while the later models featured independent suspension on all four corners, a much needed upgrade. Our Factory 5 uses Coney coilovers and independent suspension all the way around. That means modern tuning, dampening, and far better grip when you're throwing this thing sideways. Now let's talk about the most boring part about driving. stopping. This thing comes with 11-inch Ford Mustang brakes. Compare that to the original brakes, which often use 16-inch Girling calipers, which were okay for the time, but compared to new ones, they're tiny, they're prone to fading, and they're not as nearly as reliable as the new ones. So even though this thing stops in half the time and has double the performance,
There's no brake booster. It's a totally raw experience that keeps the spirit of the original Cobra alive.
the originals came with a variety of 4-speed transmissions, which were great for racing, but not so much for a lazy cruise or going to get a gallon of milk when your family's really annoying you.
This thing is powered by a Tremec T5 5-speed manual that is super easy to drive. It's a breeze to shift, and it's got an overdrive gear, so that way you can actually cruise around too. This is what it's all about, dude. This is what life is all about. Oh my God, it's like a beautiful golf cart.
Speaking of shifting the Slick Snake, let's talk about this weird shifter right here. Why does it look like it needs a honey pack? I have the answer. So, back in the day, Shelby wanted to put this engine as far back as possible for that weight balance, which meant the transmission was far back as well. And this position is to accommodate for that. Now, if we're talking body, this one's got a perfect one. The original Cobras featured a hand-formed aluminum chassis that was bent and rolled into shape by drunk English craftsmen at AC Cars. The body is undeniably gorgeous, but aluminum does have its drawbacks. It can crack, it's prone to tearing, it has its own form of oxidation, people don't realize that, and they're prohibitively expensive to make. Factory 5 bodies are made of fiberglass, which means they're lighter, they're corrosion resistant, and they're far cheaper to manufacture and buy. And I know what you're thinking, like it's not as desirable as a hand-rolled and formed aluminum body, but at the end of the day, in the time it takes to make one of those, Factory 5 can pull 100 of these out of a mold.
Even with all the modern bits, it still ends up weighing about 100, 200 pounds lighter than the original.
Which in a car that weighs 22 to 2,300 pounds is insane. On top of all the modernized mechanical components of this car, take a look at the interior. It is absolutely gorgeous. Now you gotta remember that back in the day, Shelby built these as race cars first and road cars second, meaning comfort kind of went by the wayside. This one's been restored so it has some plush seats, but the originals had leather wrapped pieces of metal. Pretty raw. Look at these seats, man. I cannot wait to sit in this seat. You know, the owner of this car saw a couch on the side of the road and said, I need that. Put that in my car, and they did. And for all my viewers out there with cold bottoms, you might want to sit down for this part. Heated seats. Which I know you're probably thinking that's like a weird, cushy thing for a Cobra, but at the end of the day, these modifications make the car more enjoyable to drive. You can drive it more often. Because remember, this thing doesn't have a roof. So if you're able to keep your nice little booty warm while you're carving around those canyons in the winter, why not?
Dude, this thing is sick.
At the end of the day, this is a car with new materials that you don't have to worry too much about destroying. You're not messing with a piece of history. You can fart in here with no qualms. I can only imagine how stressful doing any actual maintenance on this thing is. Every single oil change is like a historic preservation act, and good luck finding parts. Speaking of which, if you want to be really neurotic about this particular car being fully original, you can see we have some AN fittings there, an electric fan. All done to keep this car on the road. The Factory 5 flips that story on its head because it is made of Ford racing components and Mustang GT parts. That means you can basically keep this thing alive with the trip to AutoZone. So if like your brakes go out or your clutch is bad, you can just order a new one. And the Ford 302 long block is still made today. As a matter of fact, the longest the owner of this car has ever had to wait for maintenance parts is 1 week. And because this build uses modern systems with modern components, you don't have to worry about babying it. You can actually drive this thing.
If I got to drive this thing every day, I think I'd be a lot happier. This is like medicine.
This is a car that you can actually drive hard, get rock chips, and then go to the same store that sells the wiper blades for your ex-girlfriend's Altima to fix it. Now, I know I've said a million coolest things about this car, but truly, what I think is the most dope about a Factory 5 build is how much you can make it yours. You're not restricted to Carroll Shelby's original vision. You can put Workmeister S1s on it, some carbon fiber, and throw a K-series in it. You can put a hot dog machine in the back, and people aren't gonna freak out because it's an original Cobra. And because the chassis is built for it, you could put a 5-liter Coyote or a 600 horsepower Ford crate engine in this thing, and it won't break a sweat. You know why? That is the official Cobra recipe. Little car, big balls. But how much does this all actually cost? Well, a real, genuine Shelby Cobra can be bought from around $1 to $13 million. Now for a Factory 5, on the other hand, you can get yourself into a Cobra for $25,000 if you're really pinching pennies and using used parts. Typically, they range more around 75 grand. That means you get the Cobra experience without the fear of totaling a piece of automotive history. Instead of peeing your pants in fear of totaling an irreplaceable work of art, you can just pee your pants. Because this is America, and you're allowed to pee your pants.
Whoa! Ooh, all this hair growing on my chest all at once, it hurts!
At the end of the day, the Factory 5 is still a Cobra. It has the same shape, the same sound, the same driving feel. They even have licensing from Shelby, so it isn't some fake Fugazi kit. This is the real deal. Ironically, the original AC Cobras came in 3 generations, so the fact that this is called a Mark IV makes it all the more special. And on top of all that, by driving replicas hard, we can protect the originals while keeping the spirit of the car still on the road.
Downshift up. Yeah!
For enthusiasts, that means the barrier to entry drops dramatically. That means more people get to have the rush of piloting a Cobra without the crushing weight of potentially totaling a piece of automotive history. And if all of this isn't enough proof to you, and you're still gonna yell, fake, fake, well, my Jordans are fake, dude. Nothing's real, everything's fake. There's no such thing as real, we're all in a computer simulation. This is just a distraction to make you compliant. I want to give a big thank you to the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Come on down to the Peterson Automotive Museum and check out some crazy cars like this, and that, and that, and that. If you can't check this car out in person, make sure to hit them up on social media. They're doing a sweepstakes right now to give away a 911, and you look really good driving it. So thank you guys for watching. See you next time.